Our coverage of NMS at 1 continues, but let's now get into the Building Bridges initiative. Let's start with the BBI map. What happened today, the so-called Super Tuesday. 26 more counties voting to pass the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020 to bring the total number of county assemblies to vote in favor of the bill to 38. Only the one county, the county of Baringo, has voted against the BBI bill. Eyes on 8 more counties yet to vote. The counties of Kilifi, Uasin Gishu, Nandi, Elgeyo Marakwet, Turkana, Kericho, Mandera, and Wajir. I want us to get into the what next. Of course, what next is the bill goes to Parliament. The speakers of the county assemblies will deliver the draft bill to both the speakers of both houses of the National Assembly and the Senate. Let's bring in party leader of NARC Kenya, Martha Karua, joining us here on NEWSLINE, as is Professor Kivutha Kibwana, the governor of the county of Makueni. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on NEWSLINE tonight to just dissect some of these issues coming out from the BBI process for Kenyans, for us. Let me begin with you, Madam Martha Karua. Were you surprised by the overwhelming nature the county assemblies have passed the BBI bill? And what next for the anti-BBI crusade by Linda Katiba?
The BBI, or rather the Linda Katiba movement, remains on board and it remains strong. From us, we are saying, a luta continua. I wasn't surprised at all by the passage of the BBI bill by the county assemblies, what with coercion, outright bribery, intimidation, including threats to arrest. You will remember that the Baringo MCAs who dared to vote no are writing statements and with threats of arrest hanging over their heads. Not surprising at all. But I want to remind Kenyans, all the elected leaders in Kenya, all the MCAs, all members of Parliament, and indeed all top civil servants are
all right.
Total, whereas Kenyans are over 50 million. We remain on board.
Thank you, Madam. We'll come to you. We need to sort out your microphone first. Let me come to you, Professor Kibwana. Congratulations for passing of the BBI bill. But a few days ago, you were opposed to the BBI bill, and in fact, supporting Honorable Martha Karua and her Linda Katiba team. In fact, you went to court to stop this whole process. At what point did your interests change? Or did you have a change of heart?
I think it's important to explain for Makueni County that probably unlike several counties, there was public participation, indeed 2 episodes of public participation. Because it's the county assembly that is supposed to pass or to reject the bill, the primary mandate of public participation where it occurs falls on the county assembly. And when in the Makueni instance, they said there was going to be public participation of all of us, including through memoranda and physical public participation.
Right.
The county executive did undertake some civic education and also, get people to be ready for that public participation. And ultimately, when the county assembly did so, from 55 memoranda, 55 memoranda said yes, 3 memoranda which were brought to them said no. In the 54 venues of public participation by the county assembly, 46 venues were able to say yes, and 2 were able to say no, and 1 there wasn't a vote. So when you have a situation of 95% memoranda saying yes. When you have in 46 venues, that is 87% saying yes. As far as I was concerned, I had to accept that the majority of those who have gone to public participation through the county assembly have said yes. And as a consequence, what Kibwana thought, what Kibwana's position was, became secondary to what the majority of those people said. And therefore, I had to accept that the will of the people was primary, and therefore to accept.
Always the plan to go with the people rather than your personal convictions at the end of the day?
Definitely. When it comes to matters of democracy, even when my position, my personal position, is different from that of the people of Makueni, I have to accept that their position dominates. And actually, we were in a situation where, for example, they said that for them the 35% means a lot. Because already in Makueni, we have a ward development fund of 33 million shillings. And they said if now there is 35%, and therefore that ward development fund becomes like 66 million per ward, they said that they like that because they have seen things being done in Makueni. So I think some people, of course, have misunderstood as if it is Kibwana's position, but this is the position of the people of Makueni. It is democracy, and I run a democratic government, and if the people say that they like something, I cannot reject it. We will differ in terms of views, but I cannot reject what they say they prefer and they want.
All right. Let me go to Mheshimiwa Martha Karua for her take on this. Mheshimiwa Karua, Kivutha Kibwana's reformist credentials are out there for all to see. In fact, he was with you a few days ago. What is your take on his change of heart?
I think we let him explain himself. It is not for me to judge him. I would want to examine the public participation he's talking about. And I would want to pose the question: did the people of Makueni get the copies of the proposed bill? If so, how much time did they get with the bill? What other information was given to them except the bait of 35% in a situation where the government is finding it difficult to disburse the 15%, where the government is debt-laden and had to ask for a moratorium on debt, is continuing with excessive borrowing to meet day-to-day expenses? How much information did the people of Makueni have, and people of Kenya? And did they, for instance, know that the current budget proposals, which started being prepared last October, do not contain the 35%? And therefore, in the coming budget, in spite of the county assemblies having voted for BBI, they will not get the 35%. Therefore, the president, who is proposing and who is entering his final year in June, will not lead his administration to disburse 35%. He is actually creating a problem for the incoming administration, because in the circumstances, it will be next to impossible for 35% of revenue to go to the counties amidst the debts.
Governor Kibwana, what is your take on the issue of public participation? For your county, obviously, you can't speak for anybody else. And also the issue of the 35% devote funds to the counties as opposed to 15%.
As far as I'm concerned, when we did start this process of BBI initially, That is when we started with public participation on this bill. We were able to get people from all over Makueni to discuss what it was so that they could bring their views before the people. We did that also for KITILI. But subsequently, we discovered that some of the things that that people wanted were not coming through. And there was a pause, of course, with COVID of civic education and all that. It is a fact that there hasn't been enough time to do civic education. Even as we go into the referendum, if that will happen, more civic education will be needed. So I cannot say that even for Makueni, we have had maximum civic education on this. But in terms of what we did in Makueni, we made the Constitution Amendment bill. We made it available so that people, were reading it. They were taken through it. And as I've said, I'm not saying that there was enough time for that to happen. For example, like when we had considerable civic education before the 2010 Constitution. But I think one has to understand Makueni. One has to understand that the 15% that we have had before, because there was that 33 million shillings for every ward, and they make their own decisions about what they will do with that money. So that is a context that might not be in other places. And so the argument was that if with the 15%, they have 33 million for each ward and they make decisions on what to do with that. If there is 35%, then they said they will have about 66 million shillings to each ward, and they said they would like that. Of course, one of the things that I know is there is considerable money of devolution that is that goes to the health sector, that goes to agriculture sector, and if that money was released to devolution, it would be able to actualize the 35%. But I think for me, what really was important was the people made a particular statement. So it was up to me to decide: do I tell them that I reject what you're saying and I will impose my will on you? And I said, that's not the route I want to take. Unless, of course, I said to myself, if I disagree with these people, then I can tell them that I will not continue to be your governor because I have this view and you have another view, and I will not respect your view. So that was the bottom line for me. All right.
Mheshimiwa Karua, now the stance of Linda Katiba is that the Constitution of Kenya 2010 just needs to be implemented properly. But going by the voting we saw today, is that the people of the county, your county, the county of Kirinyaga, and Governor Kibwana's county, the county of Makueni, at least, seem to be impressed by some of these things in the BBI, the 35% to the counties that you are contesting, the ward development funds, more constituencies, and the fact that the MCAs have car grants. Some people are saying is neither here nor there. Are you worried about going against what we may call the will of the people at this juncture?
I think you have to ask the right questions and not skirt around the issues. There's been bribery and coercion. That's what I've said. If the sweeteners were so good, why did the MCAs have to be promised the 2 million in order to pass BBI? And it was quid pro quo. That's what the president promised at Sagana, so as to convince the Mount Kenya and ultimately the MCAs. And I would like to repeat, the MCAs are obviously impressed because of the gift they have received, because of the coercion, because of the intimidation. That doesn't mean the people in the counties are impressed. Other than Makueni, I'm hearing Professor Governor Kibwana say there was some semblance of public participation. almost all the other counties, there was nil public participation, not even pretense. So it is the MCAs of Kirinyaga who are impressed, not the people of Kirinyaga. But before the referendum comes, we shall have to be heard as the people who object to the referendum, and we hope to break it down to the people, to show them that BBI really is a fraud. It is not telling the truth. If 35% was to go to the counties, it would have been budgeted in the 2021-2022 budget, because when they started the process last year, the referendum bill had already been published. What better way of showing goodwill and showing commitment than factoring that in the budget? This is something that is futuristic. My colleague, Governor Kibwana, knows this, and that is why he's trying to explain that already what the government spends in the budget can amount, or not in the budget, but in agriculture, in health, and in other services, is already, if counted, amounting to 35. In other words, he is saying he is aware that no additional money is going to go to the counties. This is what the civic education the people ought to have been given, so that they vote, and they, in the public participation, that is, from a position of information. What I have noticed, the government has not been forthcoming, or the proposals of BBI, in information. They have not distributed the amendment bill. My friend, the governor, is saying that they distributed. Maybe that was an initiative of Makueni County only. I'm not aware of any bill being distributed in my home county or in any other county I have visited, but I'm aware of screenshots being circulated on social media carrying what they call the 9 points that support BBI, which say money first, politics later, that's the opening. And I'm saying, if it is money first, put the 35% in the forthcoming budget and show that actually your word is your bond. Failure to do that, it just confirms what we are saying, that BBI is but a fraud. And we need to protect our Constitution, which not only gives the public their voice and their say, but also protects their rights.
So, to pick up from where you've left, Mheshimiwa Karua, in the beginning of March, the proponents of the BBI will now be going to, to the villages and the counties to popularize the BBI bill. They say they will be educating Kenyans on the bill. As part of those who are opposed to this process, as Linda Katiba, do you have a game plan to counter that or to educate Kenyans?
We will be doing what we can. The proponents of BBI, which they are calling a popular initiative, are illegally using public funds. I say illegally because if it's not a government initiative, it's a popular initiative, they're not supposed to use public funds. If it is a government initiative, then it should have gone as a parliamentary bill. So they will unconstitutionally spend public funds like they have been doing, but we will, as volunteers, and relying on other volunteers, we shall be out there educating the public and having civic education. And at that time, unlike now, the media will be obliged to give us equal airtime, because right now, the media is giving 90% of the time to pro-BBI, to the extent that you began by congratulating Governor Kibwana on the passing of the threshold of more than 24 counties today.
But I have brought you both here to hear so that Kenyans can hear both sides of the story.
Yes.
All right, I want us to talk about...
10% you are bringing opponents.
All right. All right.
90% proponents.
I'll take that, but I disagree. But I want us to talk about the politics. But before we do that, Governor Kibwana, what is your take on the issue of the MCA car grants? There were loans that are now being converted into car grants. A lot of people are seeing that as outright bribes to the members of county assemblies to pass this bill.
Well,
what is your take on it?
I think before I react to that, I think it is important to state that before this particular bill is passed, and if there is a referendum, there is also a referendum to approve it, the 35% that Honorable Mother is saying should be in the budget, it's not possible for it because it's not law yet. It can only come through a supplementary because there is no legal basis as of now for Treasury to make it part of the budget. I think that's an important point, perhaps, to indicate. And Martha said you did congratulate me for Makueni passing this a bill. But I have explained that the County Assembly, yes, did pass it. And because, according to the County Assembly, there was a verdict from the people of Makueni to approve. So it has nothing to do with myself as a governor of Makueni, because I didn't read the bill for the people and tell them that now you must pass it. No. There is a difference between myself and between the people of Makueni. And I explained that when they make a particular decision, I respect that decision, and I may not agree with it. I'm still in court. The Supreme Court has to judge, has to give an advisory opinion because I went to court. I have not withdrawn, that particular case.
Exactly. I wanted to ask you about what you're saying now. What happens to the issues that you had contention with in
those
BBI?
Those issues and the other issues before the High Court are still there, and the fact that the county assemblies have passed this particular bill does not mean that what is in court is invalid. That will continue, that particular process will continue. And earlier I had said, if the Supreme Court had also given an advisory opinion against my position, I would still accept their decision, but I would disagree with that particular decision. I had also said that when it comes to the question of the MCAs and the grants, my understanding is, strictly speaking, the controller of budget has questioned that and has said it needs to pend because there are certain clarifications that are required. As of now, I don't think that that has been approved, although it has been promised, and therefore one awaits to know what finally will be the reason.
All right.
In terms of when whether this is it's something that they will get or they will not get, and its effect on what already they have done in terms of passage of the bills. But
all right, there's something I want us to talk about quickly, Mheshimiwa Martha Karua. The bill now goes to Parliament, both where a simple majority is needed from each house. There's an emerging argument that the bill may not come back to the people. I want you to educate us on that. Saying if both houses pass the bill and they make an argument that the bill does not encroach on any of the 10 protected provisions, then it can end in Parliament. Would you say that that is possible?
I must first correct what my good friend Governor Kibwana has said, that there is no legal framework for the 35%. I beg to differ, and I think that's less than candid. The Constitution sets the lower limit of the amount, the least amount that can go to the counties is 15%. And the government has, the executive has given the counties 15% for the last 9 years of President Uhuru's administration. There is absolutely nothing in the constitution or the law to prevent the government from upping that to 35 or even 50%. So it is not correct to say that they are waiting for the constitutional amendment. The president being among the proposers of the bill, together with the former prime minister, and their members form the majority in both houses. The president, through policy pronouncement, can cause the 35% to be paid immediately to the counties, even without any constitutional amendment. The other question you have asked about whether the bill requires a referendum, it definitely requires a referendum. But what I see coming from the BBI proponents is that they want this matter to pass by hook or crook. Therefore, I have seen arguments starting to be advanced that we do not need a referendum. Anything that alters the character of the executive needs a referendum. And introducing a prime minister and 3 deputies will definitely require a referendum. Introducing ministers or cabinet secretaries to be from parliament definitely requires a referendum. And part of the cases in court, the D case, is questioning whether it is justifiable or it's proper to make an amendment that alters the basic structure. The basic structure of our constitution is strict separation of powers. That's what a presidential system of government is, where the executive is separate from the judiciary and from parliament. Bringing in ministers from parliament is merging parliament and the executive, which is where the people of Kenya came from when they promulgated the 2010 constitution. Even if I don't go further than that, those are matters that require a referendum.
Governor Kibwana, do you agree with that school of thought that there is constitutional necessity for a referendum?
First of all, I want to pinpoint, when I said that 35% as a minimum is required within a new dispensation, so that the government must make 35% available. Right. I think that is an important point, because yes, under the current constitution, the government can, make available even 50%, because 15 is a minimum. But if they do 15, they are okay. But if the constitution says that the minimum is 35%, they must make 35% available. But now they can make 15, 16, up to whatever level they want. So I am not disagreeing with Mother that the government now can make 35% available. But as a minimum, according to the constitution, if the constitution said 35%, then that 35% must be made available. And as governors, we have been, arguing that significant money for devolution is within the health docket, the agriculture docket, the national level, water, and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that's an important clarification. As far as there are certain issues that, for example, are in court, including things that I have asked the Supreme Court to look at in terms of the advisory. And so I may not be able to speak specifically on some of those issues as of now because of being involved in the Supreme Court. But to put it in a simple way, all the actors so far have promised Kenyans a referendum. So if a referendum was not available, then Kenyans would feel that they were cheated. So even from that basic point of view, one expects that there will be a referendum, because a lot of the points, the very many proposed amendments that there are, those amendments are significant, and therefore, because we have been promised a referendum, if it didn't occur, there would be a political crisis, I think, within the country. And even when one looks at the report of the Makueni County Assembly in terms of the report that they voted on, the people have also said that even as they approve, there are many issues that they want to be considered, and even new issues that they have brought on board. So one would have to also look at what have these assemblies said, because they're not simply saying yes, they're also saying that there are things that Kenyans have a problem with, have an issue with, additional things. So one has to look at that in their totality so that a good decision can be made.
I'll just talk about politics, but Mheshimiwa Karua, do you want to make your final remarks on the issue of the 35% to the counties?
Yes, I just want to reiterate that the President of the Republic of Kenya, being the proponent, the major proponent of BBI, together with his brother, the former Prime Minister, absolutely nothing prevents him in the Constitution or in the law from immediately giving the 35% to the counties. And that will demonstrate that when he says he wants more money to the counties, he is committed. If he fails, his administration fails to budget for 35% to go to the counties in the coming June budget, I want to reiterate that will confirm that BBI is a fraud, and the real intention is to just create more seats at the top, mainly the seat of the Prime Minister and the 2 deputies. The big boys want more power to share among themselves, more seats. Remember, BBI promises to tackle electoral justice. There is absolutely nothing in the BBI bill to do with electoral justice. So the main reason is additional seats.
Let's talk about that. Let me stay with you, Honorable Karua. The BBI process is both a legal issue process and a political process. From where you sit, where do you think today's events leave this country's politics? Are we closer as a country to having what we have been saying, resolving issues like lack of political inclusivity?
No, the BBI was supposed to be a building bridges initiative. But from where I sit, it's a burning bridges initiative. It has polarized the country more than ever before. And right from last year, when the rallies started, in quotes, to popularize BBI, immediately intolerance surfaced. You can remember when there was the first rally in Bukungu, people were being tear-gassed in Mumias. You can remember the frog marching of some of the leaders who had attended the Kitui meeting. You can remember many, many other incidents where those who do not support BBI are being tear-gassed. We have seen the return of tear gas to disperse political rallies, which tear gas we had forgotten about because it belonged to the KANU era. So BBI is leaving the country more polarized than it was before when we started. It is unfortunate, and these are the issues we must address, noting that we are heading to a general election.
Kivutha Kibwana, we are heading to the 2022 electioneering period. How does the BBI, as it is, seek to, repair the issue that we've had in this country, political issues, the issues of political intolerance, the issues of lack of political inclusivity? How does the bill, as currently constituted, hope to fix that?
Well, I think, first of all, when it comes to issues of prime minister, issues of deputy prime ministers, and those issues, they are not necessarily new issues. Because as we will remember, and we used to be, of course, in the Kibaki government with Martha, and even before that, in terms of the pro-democracy movement, in the Yashgai version of the Constitution, the first constitutional draft, those positions were there. Only that they were configured differently because there was real sharing of power in those executive positions. When it came to bombers, those positions were also there. When it came to the Nzamba report, those positions were there. And indeed, after 2007-8, there was a constitutional amendment, and we had the prime minister and we had the deputy prime ministers. So it's not as if those positions were not there. But of course, even in the Makueni situation, the people are saying that when you have those positions, when you have also the MPs, the very many MPs, you have a problem of wage bill. That is something that came through in the public participation, so that it's like the people are rethinking about those particular positions. But I think that significantly, whether we have a new constitutional dispensation or not, we still have to go back to when we have a constitution, do we implement it? Are we faithful to it? Because if that culture does not develop, then whatever constitutional installment we have, that will still not help us. If we don't deal with the issues of corruption, if we don't deal with the issues of negative ethnicity, I don't think that we will have a bridge to a better Kenya. So I know for a fact that new laws do not solve the problems that we have. And I do agree with Martha that even in terms of electoral justice, that is still an agenda that has not been addressed. And even one must ask, as we, if we go towards a referendum, assuming that the courts do not say that that is not that there are things to be done still, one wonders whether the IEBC, the current IEBC with 3 people and so on, is able to carry that particular load. So I still think that there is a national conversation that is essential so that we can say as a country, what are the things that we do so that there are true bridges for all of us, and we can go into a certain future.
Be that as it may, do you think this country is closer to building those bridges as it is today, seeing the events of the recent past, seeing how the political system is set up? Would you say the country is closer to actually building bridges, in your opinion?
I think the fundamental issues for me that are necessary so that as a country we are at peace with ourselves, it is really to have, that genuine conversation as a country to say what do we want to happen in terms of our negative ethnicity, in terms of, the corruption issue, in terms of, us not being able to have clean business, and, all those things. And this issue of saying that there are groups which must be very, very antagonistic, like this thing of there is a Keleweke, there is a Tanga, and there is all those things. We have to really make a proper conversation if we want to be, one country, so that antagonism, we go past that. We have civil, dialogue, and we are in a position even to deal with the debt issue and all those issues. So I still must say that it is not enough to think that the solution lies in passing a new constitution or having more constitutional provisions, because you must implement what you have, and if you have anything new, then you also implement that, and whatever is new does not contradict the existing constitution. If at all, we will have a supplement to the current constitution.
All right. As we wind up on this, and still in politics, Honorable Karua, the fact that the BBI, if there will be a referendum, it is going to be done just a few months before a general election, means that the BBI and the 2022 politics will pretty much go hand in hand. From where you sit, where do you think where we are today with the passing of this BBI bill by the county assemblies and now going to parliament, and proponents are hopeful of a referendum, where do you think this leaves the other parts of this, the opposers of the BBI, political allies of the Deputy President William Ruto? You are not part of that, but you are a politician and you are opposed to the BBI. Where does this conversation as it is today leave the opposers, politically speaking?
May I first begin by saying that from all the statements I've heard through the media, including this particular media house, the Deputy President has not categorically opposed BBI. In fact, the only known group to come out opposing BBI is Linda Katiba and other civil societies. So to try and make the Linda Katiba campaign about, or to link it with the Deputy President, is trying to suggest that Kenya is about the two sides of Jubilee, Kieleweke and Tanga. That is a narrative we reject completely. As Linda Katiba, we will do our civic duty, irrespective of who else opposes or supports. But I want to say this in response to a question you asked to my brother and friend, Governor Kibwana. First of all, I agree with what he has said in response to the last question you put to him. And I want to say I am worried because the referendum issue and the BBI issue is bringing unhealthy tension, which is being brought because the president and his deputy have fallen apart. And the president and his supporters are literally trying to push the deputy president into a cliff. This itself is unconstitutional. He can only be removed constitutionally. Just like the president, all state offices, you want to remove somebody, you remove them constitutionally. My plea to all the leaders is that let us follow the Constitution. Even where we do not agree, let us not try extra constitutional means of dealing with those we do not like. We are setting a very dangerous precedent where the top office is now behaving the way many governors, and I'm glad Governor Kibwana is not one of them, where governors have mistreated their deputies, even impounded their motor vehicles, literally pushed them out of office. Public office is not private property, and you cannot push even a person you don't like out of office. You can only remove them constitutionally. My appeal, therefore, to the president is to lead the nation in obeying the Constitution, not disobeying it. And to the people of Kenya, if the presidency today cannot respect the Constitution, how can we then trust them to lead us to amend a constitution they do not obey? That is why, from where I sit, I say BBI is a fraud and we should reject it. We should support and uphold the Constitution of Kenya. Linda Katiba.
But you do agree, just as a final point on that, you do agree that the Uhuru Kenyatta succession politics is effectively has an effect on almost every political happening inside central Kenya, where you come from. Don't you agree?
It has an impact in the whole country. It has polarized the country. And I believe his BBI project is about his succession. And you can see how it is bringing the big boys together. I think they are counting and saying 5 positions, there will be enough. I want to remind them this country has more than them. And it's not about 5 big tribes. It's about each and every Kenyan. And what is happening is dangerous. And the president, as the top leader of this country, should be worried about that. We shouldn't pull this country apart. We should unite it. Yeah.
Governor Kibwana, your thoughts on the relationship between the president and his deputy?
Of course, there is a sense in which their relationship is both official and personal. And I would imagine for the personal dimension, one can only leave that to them. But the way in which our current constitution is, I think if you were, for example, to impeach the deputy president politically, you would also hurt the president. Because in the United States of America, where we borrowed the current constitution heavily from, it's unheard of for both the president and the deputy and the vice president there, for them to read from different scripts. And actually, I don't remember an impeachment of a vice president in the American context, because they ask for votes together and they are voted for together. So maybe if there are people advising the president that he needs to jettison his deputy president for political reasons, that is something that requires to be reconsidered, because it would mean that it is being done to ease him out because of the coming elections, and not necessarily because of reasons that are based on the constitution. And I would myself think that that might be something that we have to be very careful about as a country. But in terms of, whether there are positions for the big boys and maybe some big boys and some also big girl, I have said that previously those positions were going to be there, and one would actually expect that if ever they were there, then you don't just have it, you don't have them for people from the main tribes or ethnic communities or nationalities, because when you do that, then you have not sorted out the question of bringing people together.
All right.
And therefore, we go back to the basics in terms of even when we have the current constitution, when we have, even if we were to the parliament and the people of Kenya were to agree to pass some supplement to the current constitution, if you don't obey it, then there is a problem. We are still waiting for about 40 judges to be appointed. They have not been appointed, and the constitution says they should be appointed. That is something, that requires also to happen. So,
okay.
In a way, one is really advocating, as we have always done, to follow what the people say in terms of any decision, to follow what the constitution says. And Kongamano la Mageuzi is another group that I belong to, which says that they disagree, with the.
Talking of groups that you belong to, Governor, and talking of political formations, I have to ask you this. There's a picture that has been doing the rounds the other week of yourself meeting the ODM leader with Muhisa Kitui, and has been touted as the genesis of your recent change of heart. What have we missed? What was that about?
From 1990s, I was a leader of the pro-democracy movement in this country. And I met all those people. We worked with all those people. And I continually must meet them because we are trying together to ask what is best for our country. And, you know, sometimes I have an idea. I can take that idea to anybody. I respect Raila because when all is said and done, he's an important player in terms of this country's reform movement, this country's constitution making, devolution making, and when therefore one goes to him to consult, to discuss matters, constitution and so on, one shouldn't be demonized that, you know, you are going to so and so and they are not good. You are going to, sometimes you talk to the deputy president, you talk to the president. I don't know whether, I mean, I'm expected to just stay in Makueni and not talk to anybody so that I can be pure, and with Mother we can be pure, we can be the ideal of, you know, saying no to proposals and all that kind of stuff. We have also, in our own small ways, to be bridges and to talk to everybody and to put our point across, and maybe some of what we say might be listened to and might help the country.
All right. My final question to you, Honorable Martha Karua. As we're talking about the political formations, we are seeing some of them emerge. We are seeing, you've said this country should not be about what's happening in Jubilee only. We have seen the old NASA team splitting and different coalitions coming through. Would you have your presidential ambitions. Would you coalesce around these formations?
That's an unfinished business, yes.
Would you say that you would coalesce around these formations that we are seeing today?
At the moment, the most urgent thing is not coalescing in formations. The most urgent thing for Kenya and Kenyans ni kulinda katiba, is to stop the deliberate cannibalization of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. It is to push for fixing of the electoral system before any referendum or the next general elections. Those are the most urgent things, but formations and partnerships will be considered as we draw near to the election. For now, we have a job to do, to say no to mutilation of the Constitution of Kenya 2010.
Thank you. We have to leave it at that. Martha Karua, party leader of the NAK Kenya Party, and of course the leader of the Linda Katiba Group, that is opposed to the BBI process. And also we had in studio Professor Kivutha Kibwana, the governor of the county of Makueni. Many thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on NEWSLINE tonight. That's why we leave it on the broadcast this Tuesday night, the 23rd of February 2021. For all of us here on the broadcast, we appreciate the privilege of your time tonight. Thank you for watching. We will continue to cover the happenings of the BBI process in the way only we here on KTN News can. Our sign language interpreter tonight was Damien Evans. I am Ben KITILI. Good night from Nairobi.